If you want unshakable confidence, the kind of confidence that you feel deep in your bones, even when you walk into a super intimidating room, then this is the episode for you. That kind of deep confidence doesn't come from cobbling together random pieces of advice and searching for that next magical tip or hack. It comes from having a process and a system that will work for you to build real confidence. And that's what we are learning in today's episode. Let's dive in.
Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we are talking about one of my favorite topics ever, confidence. Few things get me more excited than helping women feel genuinely powerful deep in their bones. And if that is a result that you are wanting, today's episode was created for you. I think a lot of us have had this experience of consuming a lot of advice and resources on confidence, but not seeing our confidence grow at the same rate that we are consuming all of that advice. So why is it that more advice doesn't always equal more confidence? To help answer this question, I want to share an analogy about making pancakes. Now, stay with me because this analogy is incredibly important for understanding everything that I'm going to be teaching in today's episode. So here's what I want you to imagine. You have been tasked with making pancakes, but you know nothing about making pancakes or about cooking, but you've been plopped into a kitchen and told that you must produce a pancake. And all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people start yelling random instructions at you. So one person yells, "Heat up the pan," so you heat the pan. And then someone else yells, "Pour maple syrup on it." So you pour maple syrup in the pan. And then someone else yells, "Add an egg." So you crack an egg and add it into the pan. And before you know it, you have this hot, soggy mess in the frying pan. It most definitely doesn't resemble a pancake. And part of the reason that this happened is because you were given random advice that wasn't in context, it wasn't sequenced, it wasn't in order. And to actually make a pancake successfully, you would need to receive those instructions in an order that made sense. Building confidence is exactly the same. If we want to successfully move the needle when it comes to our self-confidence, we need the right steps given to us under the right context and in the right order. And a lot of times when we're listening to advice from many different sources, we're like that person in the kitchen trying to make a pancake with all of these disparate, disorganized pieces of advice. And that brings me to the goal of everything I'm about to teach you in today's episode. Today, you're not just going to learn what steps you need to take to build confidence. You are going to learn how to sequence those steps and take the right step at the right time so that you can actually move the needle and begin making real progress. To help you do this, I'm going to be teaching you a 3-part framework where you're going to learn the 3 different categories of confidence building steps, and most importantly, what type of step you should take at what point in your confidence building journey. I am so excited to get into this. The 3 different types of steps you're going to learn are called baby steps, edge steps, and warrior steps. So I'm going to dive into them one by one. Let's start with baby steps. So baby steps are those first initial teensy tiny steps that we take when we are first embarking on our confidence building journey. So in the pancake analogy that I shared with you, before you would even make the pancake, there are some foundational baby steps that you'd want to take to make sure you're ready to start cooking the pancake. You'd want to make sure that your pan is clean. You'd want to make sure that you have all of the ingredients in hand. These are steps that aren't going to actually result in the pancake on their own, but they're small preparatory steps that are going to help you feel capable and ready to make the pancake. So when it comes to building confidence, baby steps function in a very similar way. They're small, little steps that we take to help ease ourselves into the confidence building process. So I'll share some examples of baby steps that I took back when I was in my corporate career and back when I was really struggling with self-confidence. I'll never forget when I was interviewing for my first ever job. I was interviewing with McKinsey for a management consultant job, and I was so anxious about the interview because I wanted the job really badly, and I knew that the interview process was going to be deeply challenging. It's one of the most competitive interview processes in the world. And I specifically remember having a session with my therapist at the time where I was sharing about how anxious I felt, and me and her together planned baby steps that I could take to help me feel confident going into that interview. So some baby steps that we came up with that I implemented was, number one, making sure that I felt good about the outfit that I was going to wear. Number two, making sure it was ready to go in the morning, trying it on the night before, making sure there could be no possible hiccups. Number three, planning to get to the McKinsey building super early so that I didn't have to stress at all about the subway being late. And so I had time to cool down and collect myself before sitting down for the interview. These actions, number one, helped me feel stronger and more confident going into the interview. And spoiler, I got the job and I landed my dream role as a McKinsey consultant. But number two, these actions are great examples of baby steps. These were little preparatory steps that helped me experience a small bump in my confidence. On their own, they probably wouldn't give me huge amounts of confidence, but they definitely helped me feel more stable and ready. So some other examples of baby steps are things like journaling, changing your physical posture, like maybe standing up straighter, reciting affirmations, picking out an outfit that makes you feel powerful and confident. These are all steps that will offer us a tangible boost in how we feel. And they are particularly useful at a few different points along your confidence building journey. Number one, at the very beginning, when you are just getting started with your personal development. And number two, whenever you're in a situation that makes you feel particularly vulnerable or tender. So maybe something didn't go well at work, and maybe the next day you are feeling a little bit wobbly inside and you are not feeling solid at all. That would be a great day to lean on baby steps and ask yourself, what are some small, gentle things that I can do today that are low risk, but that will help me rebuild that momentum? Baby steps work because they're accessible, they get you moving without feeling overwhelmed, and they do result in tiny amounts of confidence. That being said, I want to talk about the pitfalls of baby steps because many of us, myself included, we get stuck in them and they can prevent us from building the bigger confidence that we desire. So the issue with baby steps is that they can offer us a small bump in our confidence, but they can't typically take us much farther than that. They're kind of like junk food, where when we're hungry, we can grab like a little fun-sized Kit Kat and eat it, and we might get that temporary surge of sugar high and energy, but then 15 minutes later, we're going to be hungry again. That's a little bit how baby steps function when it comes to building confidence, and something that is super tricky is that a lot of podcasts and books and self-help resources focus mainly on baby steps. So it can really give you the impression that the path to confidence comes from taking all these little actions. And that can really make you feel broken if you're taking all of these actions and it's not adding up to the deeper change you desire. This isn't happening because something is wrong with you. This is happening because baby steps create baby progress. And there's nothing wrong with baby progress. Baby progress is great. It just becomes dangerous when we expect it to be big progress. So that leads me perfectly into the second category of steps, which I like to call edge steps. If you want to see significant growth in your confidence, you have to move beyond baby steps and into edge steps. So an edge step is one step beyond a baby step, both in difficulty, but also in effectiveness. The definition of an edge step is a step that you take that exists just outside your comfort zone. The reason it's called an edge step is because it's right at the edge of your comfort zone. This is a good thing. It means that edge steps aren't wildly uncomfortable or miles and miles outside of your comfort zone. And this gives them the unique advantage of being doable and accessible. So to help you really understand the usefulness of edge steps, I'll share an example from my corporate career. Back when I worked at McKinsey, one of the first pieces of feedback that I got was that I needed to be more assertive. Now, I was super intimidated by the big, high-level meetings that I was in. So the thought of suddenly speaking up and being assertive in those rooms felt really overwhelming and difficult to me. But I was told that I had to demonstrate assertiveness if I wanted to get promoted. So I got to work figuring out how I could build my assertiveness muscle in steps. And this is where I came up with the idea of taking an edge step. So rather than forcing myself to take a gigantic leap and suddenly start being super assertive in rooms that I was struggling to speak up in the first place, I decided that I would challenge myself to practice being assertive in our team email threads. And I decided that if I ever disagreed or had a differing opinion, I would hit reply all and I would share my thoughts as opposed to falling into my usual pattern of not saying anything at all. Now, this was still outside of my comfort zone. It was scary for me to hit reply all on those threads because there were leaders and partners on those threads. But it wasn't so far outside of my comfort zone that it felt overwhelming. And as soon as I started to do it, something really important started to shift within me. I started to realize that my belief that I was not capable of being assertive was untrue, because there I was, literally watching myself be assertive. And this brings me to one of the really unique and interesting qualities that edge steps possess. Typically, when we take an edge step, it helps us break some of our limiting beliefs about ourselves. A lot of times we have limiting beliefs that we're not good at this and we can't do that. And when we start to take edge steps, those limiting beliefs tend to crumble. So let me share a few examples of limiting beliefs that could be eliminated if you were to take an edge step. Many people have the limiting belief that they're not good at small talk. A beautiful way to eliminate that limiting belief is to take the edge step of participating in small talk with a coworker. A lot of people have a limiting belief that they don't have enough expertise to participate in a particular meeting. A great way to shatter that limiting belief is to pick a meeting that isn't super high stakes, isn't super stressful, but that is one where you don't have all the expertise and challenge yourself to contribute something. That will help you break the limiting belief that you don't have the smarts or the expertise to meaningfully contribute. Edge steps are the meat and potatoes of building confidence because they strike a harmonious balance between being effective and doable. They're effective because they break the limiting belief, and they're doable because they elicit an amount of discomfort that we can handle. If you want to see significant growth in your confidence, it is really important to move beyond baby steps and into edge steps, and to be keeping edge steps top of mind and taking them regularly, because our brains are wired for comfort. So our brains are always going to want us to take those comfortable, safe baby steps. And part of the confidence building process is saying to our brain, no, we have to get out of that comfort zone and do something a little bit riskier, a little bit edgier, because that is what is going to lead to growth. Now, here are a couple of signs that you are in a perfect place to focus on taking more edge steps. Number one, if you've been very focused on baby steps and you're starting to feel stagnant or stuck, that is a sign that now is the time for you to pivot to taking edge steps. And number two, the second sign is if you're experiencing a lot of limiting beliefs. If you're having a lot of thoughts that sound like, I can't do blank, I'm not good at blank, then in order to build confidence, you need to shatter those limiting beliefs. And one of the best ways to do that is to take an action that proves the limiting belief untrue. Edge steps are so powerful because they unwind the limitations that we falsely believe that we have. And when we take edge steps, we learn that our capacity isn't fixed. We learn that not every limiting thought we have about ourselves is true. And when we take an edge step and we break one limiting belief, then we start to wonder, what other limiting beliefs have I been thinking about myself all along that aren't even true? They create enormous motivation to keep evolving and keep challenging ourselves, and that is why they are so powerful in building confidence. Now, while edge steps are enormously useful in helping us build confidence, one important thing to know is that not all confidence is created equal. Sometimes the confidence that we build feels a bit fragile, and it can feel like as soon as things get difficult, the confidence that we've been building is nowhere to be found. Whereas other forms of confidence are more deep and enduring and tend to stick with us through the ups and downs. And this brings me into the third category of action steps, which I call warrior steps. Warrior steps help us take that confidence that we've been building through edge steps and deepen it so that the confidence becomes unshakable and able to weather all of the ups and downs and any obstacle that gets thrown at us. We are going to take a super quick break, and when we come back from the break, I'm going to teach you what warrior steps are, whether you are ready for them, and how you can use them to deepen your confidence. I'll catch you after the break. If this episode is resonating with you, it's probably because you are ready for career advice that is honest, insightful, and goes beneath the surface. That is exactly the type of advice I share in my weekly newsletter. In my next newsletter, I'm going to be breaking down the 10 confidence-building insights that I have learned from 5 years of coaching professional women. Sign up for my newsletter today so you don't miss out on that. You can join at jessguzikcoaching.com/newsletter or by clicking the link in the show notes. My newsletter is totally free, and it's where I share some of my favorite ideas that I don't post anywhere else. Once again, you can join using the link in the show notes. And now back to the episode. Okay, so now it is time for part 3, warrior steps. Warrior steps is my favorite category of action steps. So a warrior step is kind of like an edge step, but bigger. So an edge step elicits an amount of discomfort where even though it's uncomfortable, we feel like we can handle it. We know, okay, like this is a little bit scary, but I've got this. A warrior step is slightly bigger and elicits an amount of discomfort that feels larger, that feels a little more like, whoa, okay, I am about to do something big. I am about to do something scary. The other quality that makes a warrior step different from an edge step is the type of discomfort it elicits. A warrior step elicits an emotional experience that feels vulnerable. So typically, warrior steps are actions that make you feel exposed, that make you feel like other people might be looking at you or judging you or having thoughts about you. So any action that elicits a bigger amount of discomfort and simultaneously makes you feel emotionally exposed is a warrior step. Examples of warrior steps include sharing a new proposal with your boss and awaiting their feedback, presenting your work to senior stakeholders, sharing a bold suggestion in an intimidating room. These are all examples of warrior steps, and they're all instances that can put us in an uncomfortable and vulnerable moment. The reason that I call them warrior steps is because they require warrior-like strength to navigate through. So first, I want to share a quick example of a warrior step from my career, and then I'm going to talk about how you can leverage warrior steps to help you build deep, lasting confidence. So I've talked about my time at McKinsey, and there was a specific project where I was still fairly new, and I was asked to come up with a strategic framework for us to use for the project. I had never been given that level of responsibility ever before, and I'll never forget that vulnerable feeling of putting my slide in front of everyone, my boss and every single person on the team, and sitting in that moment of silence after I had explained the slide and was now waiting for them to offer me their feedback. That moment of silence elicited such an intense feeling of vulnerability for me, where I was wondering what they were thinking. I was wondering, does my boss hate it? I was wondering, is there something stupid in this? Are people thinking that, I'm super incompetent? That moment of silence is a great example of a warrior step. In that moment, I felt highly uncomfortable and highly exposed and vulnerable. But that moment also played a key role in helping me grow. In that moment of discomfort, I had the opportunity to practice supporting myself during a moment of vulnerability. And this is exactly where the power lies in warrior steps, because warrior steps expose us to a heightened level of discomfort and emotional vulnerability. They also open up an opportunity for us to learn to treat ourselves with greater respect and greater self-compassion during those difficult, uncomfortable moments. Very often, when we're in those vulnerable, uncomfortable moments, our knee-jerk response is to attack ourselves and to say really harsh things to ourselves. So I'm sure you've had moments where you've maybe presented your work to someone, or you're waiting for someone to respond to your idea or share feedback. And in that moment of silence, you're having thoughts like, this doesn't look good, they don't like it, I'm blowing it, they hate me, I sound stupid. A warrior step is an opportunity for us to practice changing that inner dialogue and supporting ourselves psychologically through the vulnerable moment. It's an opportunity to practice saying things to ourselves like, wow, this is difficult and big, but look at you showing up for it and being courageous. Wow, I'm so proud of you for doing this. This is such a growth moment for you. You're doing great. And when we say those kind, supportive, encouraging things to ourselves during difficult moments, it not only helps us strengthen our relationship with ourselves, but it also gives us evidence that we can handle emotionally difficult things. And when we know that we can handle emotionally difficult things, that is when our confidence starts to evolve from shallow confidence to deeper, more unshakable confidence. Now, there's a key difference between warrior steps and edge steps that is super important that I want to quickly highlight. An edge step makes us feel confident because we watch ourselves do something outside of our comfort zone. And the confidence comes from us thinking, I can do that. I did that. A warrior step is different. A warrior step is not about what we can do, but it's about what we can handle. So it's not about us proving to ourselves that we can successfully take a specific action. It's about proving to ourselves that we can successfully handle and navigate through a difficult emotion. So edge steps build a form of confidence that is more performative. It's about performing, it's about showing up, it's about doing the thing, and it's about showing ourselves we can do the thing, right? We're performing the action. And that action that we performed makes us feel confident because we're like, I performed that action. A warrior step is different. It's not performative, it's relational. It deepens our relationship with ourselves. We don't build confidence because we watched ourselves do something. We build confidence because we watched ourselves handle a challenging emotional experience. I'm sharing this and highlighting this because if you want to build deeper confidence, it's important to know that you can't perform your way to confidence. You can't act your way to confidence. The path to deeper confidence is through the way that you treat yourself and relate to yourself. That is the core of what helps us build confidence that lasts. Now, here are some signs that you are ready to take warrior steps. Number one, you've been taking edge steps, you've been taking actions outside of your comfort zone, and your confidence is growing, but you feel like you're at a plateau and you feel like you don't have that deeper, rooted, unshakable confidence that you are desiring. Another sign that you are ready for warrior steps is that you still find it challenging to navigate the emotional highs and lows of your professional life. That is a sign that you will deeply benefit from the emotional resilience and inner stability that warrior steps will create. Okay, now one thing that I want to share with you about warrior steps is of all of the kinds of steps that I'm teaching, they're the most complicated and the trickiest to properly leverage as part of your confidence building process. Because warrior steps expose you to more difficult emotions and because by their nature they're more intense, there are a few different ways that we can get derailed when we are taking warrior steps. So for the remainder of the episode, I'm going to talk about the ways that we might get derailed and give you some valuable perspectives to help you avoid some of those pitfalls. So I'm going to talk about 4 different pitfalls of warrior steps. Pitfall number 1 is taking too few warrior steps or taking no warrior steps at all. We are naturally, as humans, going to avoid doing uncomfortable things. And because warrior steps are the most uncomfortable of the 3 steps, we are going to avoid them the most. Now, something that's really important and a pattern that I see somewhat frequently when I'm coaching and working with my clients is sometimes we are stuck in the land of baby steps and edge steps, and we're excluding warrior steps as an option, and we're excluding it so much that we don't even realize it's an option. All we see in terms of our options for growing our confidence are baby steps and edge steps. So one thing to look out for is, are you closing off the possibility of taking bigger, bolder actions that could really benefit your confidence? So that's pitfall number 1, which is taking too few warrior steps. Pitfall number 2 is the opposite of pitfall number 1. Pitfall number 2 is taking too many warrior steps. Now, you might be thinking that this isn't making sense, but stay with me because this is really important. Warrior steps are intense, and the goal isn't necessarily to take as many warrior steps as frequently as possible and make them as big as possible. The goal of warrior steps is to pace ourselves so that we can digest the difficult experience of taking a warrior step. It's sort of like running a marathon. If you signed up for a marathon and you're 1 week out from your marathon, it probably wouldn't be a good idea for you to say to yourself, let me try to squeeze in as many marathons as I can possibly squeeze in the week before the marathon. So Just like that wouldn't work for running a marathon, warrior steps are similar. It's not that more is always better. We want our process to be sustainable, and we want to make sure that we have time to digest and rest and recover and process. This is why I built a lot of space and sustainability into my coaching programs and into the way that I work with my clients, because the goal is not let's do as much as possible, as fast as possible, because that's actually going to backfire and lead to burnout and backsliding. The goal is let's take steps forward that are manageable and digestible and that are going to move the needle sustainably in the long term. So that's pitfall number 2. And now pitfall number 3. And I'm just laughing because this is one that I have fallen into many times. You might relate to this, but pitfall number 3 of warrior steps is getting too focused on the outcome. So a lot of times when we take a big, bold step, we speak up in a meeting, we give a presentation, we do something that feels really vulnerable and exposing. Our immediate focus afterwards is, did I succeed? Did it work? Did I get the response that I wanted? Did people like it? Did I get praise for it? Did I sound good? We focus on the outcome. Now, I'm not saying that the outcome never matters, right? Outcomes do matter. But in the context of warrior steps specifically, warrior steps have nothing to do with outcomes. Edge steps have to do with outcomes. Warrior steps have to do with our ability to navigate difficult emotions. That is the core of what a warrior step is. And the quote unquote success or failure of a warrior step isn't in the external success or failure of the action we took. It's in our internal ability to guide ourselves compassionately and courageously through the uncomfortable emotions. So in some ways, the outcome of a warrior step doesn't even matter. Whether you failed at sharing your suggestion or you succeeded at doing the scary thing has no bearing on whether the warrior step is going to build your confidence, because the real metric of a warrior step is, was I able to support myself kindly, courageously, and compassionately through these difficult emotions? And typically those emotions, that vulnerability, that feeling of being exposed, that happens before we know if it was a success or a failure. But we get fixated on whether we succeeded or failed, and that's what we give ourselves credit for, rather than zooming out and giving ourselves credit for the courage that we demonstrated in taking the action in the first place. And to take this one level deeper, what's really interesting is that a warrior step that results in a success often builds less confidence than a warrior step that results in a failure. And I know that this sounds really backwards, but remember, the purpose of warrior steps is to increase our ability to navigate uncomfortable emotions. When we take a warrior step and then we fail, we get 2 opportunities to navigate discomfort. We get to navigate the discomfort of taking the step, and we get to navigate the discomfort that comes from the failure. This is why very often with the right support, the right perspective, the right process, a failure can play a more pivotal role in building our confidence than a success. And I know this might feel totally backwards. And if it does, the perspective that I would want to offer you is that confident people can handle failure. And people who can't handle failure tend to be less confident. So hopefully that can open your mind to see why a warrior step that results in failure could be really useful for someone who is working on building their confidence. Okay, pitfall number 4, which is closely related to pitfall number 3, is misinterpreting the emotional discomfort. So here's something very interesting about warrior steps. A warrior step is not guaranteed to grow our confidence. In fact, a warrior step can either grow your confidence or shrink your confidence, depending on how you interpret the experience. So when we take a warrior step, we feel a vulnerable emotion. If we interpret that vulnerable emotion as meaning that something is wrong with us, then the warrior step will erode our confidence. So let's look at an example to help learn this. Imagine you're in an intimidating room, your boss is in the room, leaders are in the room, it's not your meeting, you don't usually contribute, but you decide today you're going to be super courageous, you're going to take a warrior step, and you're going to share your thoughts in that room. So you jump in, you share your thoughts, and it's silent, and the vulnerability hits, and you're in that warrior moment of the warrior step. Now, in that moment, if you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I feel awful, this feels awful, I feel so vulnerable, I feel so exposed, that was so stupid, why did I say that? Why did I speak up? Why am I always pushing myself to do these uncomfortable things? This doesn't even make sense. I should have waited for a better opportunity. People don't like my idea. That came out stupid. If you start saying all of those things, you are going to come out of that meeting feeling worse, not better. However, if instead of thinking all of those harsh, self-punishing thoughts, you think, wow, I feel really uncomfortable, but that's because I did something bold. I did something courageous. I put myself out there. Oh my gosh, that was so resilient of me, and I've got this, and I can handle this. If you think those things, you will leave that experience feeling more confident rather than less confident. And this is one of the tricks and pitfalls of warrior steps. Because they elicit a feeling that feels uncomfortable, that feels bad, it's easy for us to confuse that feeling with I am bad. So we jump from I feel bad to I am bad. And then we leave that experience feeling less confident, feeling worse about ourselves. Whereas if we can learn that the bad feeling doesn't mean that we are bad, and if we can learn to get into a thought process of I feel bad, but not because I am bad, but because I am good, because I did something bold and courageous that not everyone is willing to do. If we can make that shift, then we will leave that meeting or leave that situation feeling more confident rather than less confident. So the trick with warrior steps is it's not just about taking them. It's about taking them and then digesting them in an appropriate way. Now, one thing that I am aware of in this episode is that a lot of what I'm talking about here isn't super glamorous. Warrior steps are not glamorous. They are the least glamorous part of the confidence building process, but they are worth it. Because if we only stay in the world of baby steps and edge steps, we never learn to handle those harder, more difficult moments. And because we don't build that ability, we feel more unstable inside. So the irony of warrior steps is, and it's the irony but also the blessing of warrior steps, is that when we are willing to experience the emotional instability that comes with taking a warrior step, it creates more internal feelings of stability in the long run because over time we build up evidence that we can handle hard things and we stop being so afraid of them and they stop feeling so overwhelming and chaotic because we've learned to navigate them. And that is what creates the deeper sense of confidence. When I think about the difference between like a surface level confidence versus a deeper confidence, one of the big themes that comes to mind for me is the theme of stability. I feel stable. I feel grounded. Me feeling stable and grounded didn't happen because I avoided warrior steps and I avoided uncomfortable things. It's just the opposite. I feel stable and grounded because those warrior steps taught me that I am good at handling hard things. Just like a warrior, right? Like imagine a warrior standing there on a mountain, like they're stable. Something difficult can come at them and you know that they can handle it because of what they've handled before. So even though this deeper work requires more of us, it requires us to put ourselves out there. It requires us to experience moments of emotional instability. It is so worth it because the confidence that it builds and the self-respect that it builds, in my opinion, is irreplaceable. And this is the level of work that I do with my clients. Most of the women who come into my programs are looking for something deeper. They don't want the surface level work. They don't want the hacks and tips. They want to do the real, meaningful inner work to grow a sense of confidence that is stable and lasting. And that stable, lasting confidence is the backbone that you need in order to have an effective voice as a leader. If you are ready to build that deeper confidence and you want a step-by-step, sustainable, beginner-friendly process, this is the exact work you will do inside my signature program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy. Inside this program, you will do the inner work to grow your confidence, and you will learn the foundations of how to communicate like a leader. The absolute best way to join this program is to get yourself on the waitlist by clicking the link in the show notes or going to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. Several of the more recent cohorts have sold out behind the scenes to the waitlist only. The waitlist always gets first dibs on spots and is always the first to find out when new spots and new cohorts open up. I will drop the link in the show notes. Again, that's jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to this episode, for being a part of this podcast. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.